Cheers. Welcome to Culture Night,
where each week we're doing fancy wine and watch movies that are in some way culturally significant. I'm Andrew.
And I'm Sarah, and we are back for season 6, episode 3.
Yeah. For those of you following in real time, as we're posting these, it's just another week. For us, we've taken like a month and a half off.
Yeah, I want to say the last time we recorded was probably almost 2 months ago, like 6 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm. Month and a half.
Yeah. We hadn't yet been to Tobin James. Mm-hmm. So to start the podcast off, I guess, little podcast business, we did visit Tobin James this fall, and it was lovely.
For those of you watching on YouTube, you can see I'm wearing a nice Tobin James shirt that we bought there, and you are wearing a
Tobin James crew neck sweatshirt that is so cozy for fall. They had me, as soon as I walked in, I saw it, and I was like, we will be leaving with that.
Even though it was about 150 degrees when we were there, the West Coast was hit by a big heat wave, and it was absolutely brutal.
Yep.
But
I mean, at least we had the wine to take the edge off. But yeah, it was brutally hot while we were there.
Yeah. And so now we are deep into fall, and it feels like a million years ago. Mm-hmm. But with that being said, should we hop into
what we're drinking tonight?
Yep.
On that note. So we are actually drinking a bottle of wine that we tasted in the tasting room while we were at Tobin James in Paso Robles, California. And it is the 2019 Tobin James Primo Sangiovese. I want to say this is the first wine we tasted that day, and we were very excited by it.
Ooh, very spicy on the nose.
Yes, there's a lot coming at you. Mm-hmm. A subtle alcohol smell at the end, but very almost like cherry, darker fruits with a little bit of spice on the nose.
Mm-hmm. A little bit of vanilla. Mm-hmm. Very, very complex.
I understand why we were captivated by this. This is very good. Mm-hmm. It's very bright. Like, it doesn't feel like necessarily cozy. I don't know if these words are making any sense. Mm-hmm. We're super well-versed in wine terminology, but it just feels very like, I don't know. If you're not watching on YouTube, we can't see my hand motions, but just like delicious and bright and awake. Probably doesn't have any, does it have any tasting notes?
No, it's got the generic label on the back there about, if you ever drank wine has flavors. Doesn't really tell anything specifically. It's the same label on a whole bunch of different ones. But
that's our one complaint about you, Tobin James, is that some of you, the back of your wine labels have like a lot of detail, and it's super helpful when we're tasting the wines, but some of them have generic ones, and that makes it harder for us.
Like, I like using it to kind of double check that I'm actually tasting
on the right
things. I don't want to do it beforehand because I don't want it to influence what I'm tasting, but I do like to kind of sanity check there. But I am excited to keep drinking this wine as it opens up even more.
Yeah, it's very delicious. So I think with that, it's time to jump into our Slept On It segment, where we are going to revisit the movie that we watched last time, which for us, like we said, was a long time ago. Mm-hmm. And it was The Right Stuff from 1983, I think.
That sounds right.
And does your rating change after sleeping on it? You rated it a 6.6 and I rated it a 6.4.
I don't know. I think it's been long enough that I can't really remember if I would change it or not. If anything, it'd probably go down a little bit. What did I say? 6.6. I'd maybe put it like a 6.2 or something. Or
I am gonna just stay where I'm at. Thinking about like the content of it, it was super interesting. I feel like the acting was fine. Nothing. It's been long enough that I can't say it was great because I don't specifically remember, but it was nothing that was like terrible acting. Like, it was all pretty good, and it was all based on true events. So it's not like the story could have been really much different. It was. I mean, I felt like it was really educational. I learned a lot.
We did find out that they have done a mini series, somewhat of a remake of it. That I think
and if you will hold on tight till my fact snacks.
But I would like to watch that at some point and compare the storytelling and,
Yeah, because I mean, we went on and on and on during the last podcast about how, like, if this had just been a mini series, it would be great. But sitting down to watch this much content in one sitting, or I mean, we did it over 2 days because it was just too much. It was just too much. Yeah. So
we can head into some fact snacks.
Oh, that wasn't loud enough. Yeah, the chomp needs to be full volume. So there was not too much about this as far as behind the scenes information. I don't know if it was just not like super popular of a movie that just didn't have that much, but I couldn't find much. But it was based on a book by Tom Wolfe of the same name. So that's where all of the storytelling comes from. And something I thought was really interesting was that a lot of the lead actors chose to meet their real life counterpart in person just to like get to know them and kind of inform their acting for this. But Scott Glenn, who was playing Alan Shepard chose not to meet him and said that he wanted to like get the character and the nuances just by observation and hearing from others' points of view, which I feel like is a really interesting choice because I feel like you'd get that way more by talking to the person.
Yeah.
I guess if he didn't want like the storytelling from him of like what happened and what he was portraying to like sway him.
Maybe it's more trying to capture like how people remember him being there as opposed to just mimicking. I can see that being a little more acting versus mimicking.
Yeah. But apparently Alan Shepard did write into the director, Philip Kaufman, after seeing the movie and said that he had a spot on performance, except for being not nearly as good looking as he was. So I just thought that was interesting that he chose not to meet him because I feel like, especially if I was someone like an astronaut, like doing something that groundbreaking, I'd be like, yes, please, can I meet you and like fangirl and be sweaty and nervous.
Well, I would hope that he would have met him afterwards, but maybe not.
Yeah, I don't know. Since he wrote to the director, I was like, I don't know. Did you meet him? I don't know. Okay, my next fact snack is that the writer-director Philip Kaufman is quoted as saying it is the longest movie ever made that didn't have a plot. And I mean, it's definitely one of the longest movies ever made, just in general.
You could say the plot was like the space race, right?
Yeah, but I can kind of see what he's getting at, though. Like when I really think of it, is just like telling you what happened without it being chasing after anything, one thing specifically. It's just like, well, we're chasing after this, and then we're chasing after this, and we're chasing after this.
I mean, I've watched 2001: A Space Odyssey, so Same. I can say that this had more of a plot than that.
It did have more plot than that. I do wonder what the time difference is because they're pretty comparable in length. All right. And then my last fact snack that we've already kind of talked about is that there's an 8-episode miniseries that was released on Disney Plus in November of 2020. So I wonder if they add more information, like how long each episode is and what they go into detail. But we are very interested in watching that sometime.
For sure.
So that's all I have for fact snacks. Like I said, there was not a whole lot behind the scenes stuff on this, but if you have any other thoughts on the movie?
No, just more that I'm excited to watch the miniseries because we do love space.
Yes.
Hence why we have this season.
Yes. Love it so much. So I guess now it's time to move into what are we watching tonight?
Tonight we are watching Spaceballs from 1987. It was rated PG. I'm going to assume that is not like the PG of today, and they would be more of a PG-13. I don't think it would need to be R from it's been a while since I've seen it, but I do have parts of it memorized that we will keep that in mind as we're watching it and see if we think that is true.
I would say
accurate.
PG-13.
And now let's hop into our time machine back to 1987. I don't know why I felt the need to also do a sound effect while the sound effect was going.
You just hear it in your head. You just know it's coming.
It's like the people that did like lightsabers that couldn't stop themselves from doing that. So in 1987, the top 3 movies released that year were Beverly Hills Cop 2, grossing $153 million, Fatal Attraction, grossing $137 million, and Platoon, grossing $129 million. Of those, I have seen Platoon. I've not seen the other 2.
I have not seen any of them.
I would like to see them sometime, but not see them. The top 3 songs released that year were Walk Like an Egyptian by the Bangles, Alone by Heart. Oh, what a banger.
Right?
Oh, man. That song's gotten a lot of play in our house.
That's for sure.
And Shake You Down by Gregory Abbott.
I'm glad that you gave that kind of reaction to the song because I saw that it was in the top and I was like, oh man, he's going to get so excited.
I know. Walk Like an Egyptian, I feel like that was such like a cliche during our generation.
I was, again, in chorus in middle school and we sang it in like 7th or 8th grade. And I got like really obsessed with that song for a while. I also did a project on the Bangles for that year for chorus and I kind of spiraled into them for a while, but
yeah, but Alone by Heart, I think
that's definitely the
top song of the year for sure. So now Spaceballs, have you seen it before?
So many times.
I have seen it maybe 3 or 4 times, and it's been a good 15 to 20 years.
Yeah, I was going to ask if we had ever seen it together because I don't think that we have. So because I wasn't sure, I was like, if we've seen it together, then it's been within the last 10 years, but it's probably been 10 to 15 years since I've seen it, which is wild to me because I feel like I probably saw it like 100 times in like a 5-year span. And then
this movie to me was one of those movies where like, you know, you're riding the bus to school and like you're talking about Star Wars to one of your friends and someone overhears you and they're like, oh, Star Wars? That's for like loser babies. Have you seen Spaceballs? It's so much funnier. It's so much better. And like, because it was more of a comedy and like edgier and everything like that, it's like most kids wouldn't have seen it. That's like what it was to me, that when I finally saw it, I was like, yeah, it's pretty funny, but like not as great as this, you know, jackass on the bus made it seem to be.
Right.
But I'm excited to see it because I think now with like a more like critical eye for what they're actually parodying it as opposed to just like ha 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 looking for jokes. I think I'll see it in a different light.
Yes, I am really excited to see it now because as you know, if you've watched the sci-fi season and the season of the podcast, I have never seen Star Trek or Star Wars until the last 5-6 months that I had only seen Spaceballs. So I knew, and like, again, Star Wars is just like so infiltrated into our society that you know a lot of what they are parodying, but like you see it out of context. So I am excited to watch this now, having seen some of those movies and understanding the franchises and the worlds of those franchises a little bit more, and to just like see how it all ties together. But like for me, this was like, oh my God, my cool older cousins are letting me watch this with them. Oh my gosh, I feel like I'm too young for this, but I'm going to sit and like, they're accepting me. Like that's like what this was for me. And I think they are even the ones that like gifted me the DVD whenever I had got a DVD player, like in 2003 or 4 or whatever. And so like, this was just like my, like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be so cool because I'm watching this with them movie, which is like, kind of what you were getting at with the other kids on your bus, but like I didn't have any reference for what they were talking about.
I think it's funny because you appreciated it more as like a standalone like comedy versus seeing the other movies. So I think this is going to be really fun. It's a bit different from what people think of when they think of like space movies, but
I'm also excited to see this, even though it's been a long time, also having watched Blazing Saddles now, because I think this is the only like Mel Brooks movie I've ever really seen. So to kind of, I feel like now we're getting to the point where we've seen enough movies that we're starting to get like a lot more like crossovers and just like, I feel like the like layers of what we are appreciating from these movies is just getting like so much stronger. So I'm really excited.
Yeah. And if you want to see what our reactions were to watching Star Wars A New Hope, you can go back to season 4 or whatever we watched it.
Yes. It was one of the early episodes of season 4. And then Star Trek was the first episode of the season. Yes. Because we're only on episode 3. We're really on top of things this season. We are so sorry.
For ourselves. You guys won't notice, but
yes,
dragging it out. So that being said, let's hop into the movie.
All right. Here we go. Spaceballs. Cheers. Oh, Spaceballs.
Welcome back.
We did it. Another ep. Done and dusted.
Before we get too far ahead of ourselves, though, wine scale.
I can't drink that before I give my score.
So the wine scale is a 0 to 10 scale.
It's heavily weighted.
So the wine scale is a 0 to 10 scale. However, all of the wine that we drink on this show is a very good wine. So it is. You killed me by trying to.
I'm sorry.
I always wing it, and you looked at me. It's heavily weighted, so a low score does not necessarily mean that it is not a good wine, because all the wine we drink is very good. That being said, I'm going to rate this wine a 7.1.
Oh, I give it a 6.5. Not too far off.
Yeah,
it was good.
It was good. It got a little sweet on me.
Yes, towards the end, it did. And I guess that's what we get for having just like a taste of it at a wine tasting and not a like big glass, but
yeah,
it was still very good.
I did like it. A lot of complexity, a lot of good flavors for it. But knocking it a little bit just because it did get a little sweet on me.
Yes. But would I pick this up again? 100% yes.
Yeah. I do love a Sangiovese. I feel like they've just got that spice to it.
And drinking this just makes me so sad that we don't live closer to Tobin James, that we can just go like pick up a bunch of these for like a party or a weekend,
or go give them some unsolicited feedback in person.
Right. Because it's just so good. And we usually are just reliant on whatever shows up in our shipment. That to have a couple of extra bottles from the stuff that we picked up while we were there was really nice.
Now moving on to the movie rating out of 10.
I assume I get to go first for this one.
Sure.
I am going to give it an 8.2.
8.1. We were so close.
So close. Okay. But it also like validates me so much. I get so nervous when I pick scores. Like I feel like you're judging me when it is very much like allowed to be my own score and my own thoughts. But when we get close, it really validates me.
When we're like most of the way through a movie, I kind of think of the number and then I think, okay, does that make sense based on the criteria? Do I want to move it up or down based on that? So there's like a gut number, and then it kind of is a slight correction from there.
Yeah, I definitely get a gut number first, and my gut number was like in the 7s. It was a lot lower.
Mine was 7.4.
I didn't ever have I think maybe it was 7.5. Like, so we just like, because I was like, I mean, I feel like, going off of what your usual scales are, rewatchability. I've seen this movie a gajillion times. Like, it is so rewatchable. Plus, it's not 4 hours long at like last week that I will take this one any day. Quotable. I think quotes from this way more than I thought. After watching it back, I was like, I literally think that probably on a weekly basis for no reason at all. And I don't remember what else, but like those are the two things where I was like, those are such big parts of it. Cultural significance. Like, it's literally based off of so many pop culture things that it's just this like perfect hybrid of greatness.
And overall enjoyment is the fourth one.
And I fucking love this movie.
Yeah, so those are my 4 general criteria. Like you said, the quotability, rewatchability, cultural significance, and just overall how much I enjoyed the movie. And so my gut number was generally from how much I was enjoying. It was about the 7.4, but then it bumped up a little bit because of some of the quotability and the overall cultural significance, not just what it's based off of, but the fact that it's also influenced other things since then.
It's just so good. It's so good.
So let's move on next to the movie description.
Okay. Oh, Lord.
Where I have to go first.
Yes, you do. Oh, thank God.
It's a overall parody mostly of Star Wars A New Hope, but in a much more comedic fashion with a bunch of like breaking the fourth wall and jokes, making fun of all sorts of things from that. And
you want to get into the actual plot at all?
Guy saves princess. There's magic and space and all that ensues.
I feel like you're a little rusty. I feel like you usually give me a little bit more there.
I think it's about, I'm not going to go step by step with the whole thing, but that's about what it is.
All right. Well, I've only seen the first like 3 words of the description from the TV, but I'm
overly adjective-y.
Yes, I'm already unwell, so just brace yourself.
The intrepid.
No, just wait. When the nefarious.
Ooh.
It was nefarious that got me. And then that's where I stopped reading and I couldn't do it. When the nefarious Dark Helmet hatches a plan to snatch Princess Vespa and steal her planet's heir, Space Bum for Hire, Lone Star, and his clueless...
Space Bum for Hire. I was going to say...
No, Space-Bum-4-Hire.
Because I was going to say they didn't give any adjectives for Princess Vespa.
Which is outrageous
but
because...
they made up for it with a 4-word adjective.
Yep.
For Lone Star.
Yep. Space Bum for Hire, Lone Star, and his clueless sidekick. Oh, they didn't even name him. Come on. And his clueless sidekick fly to the rescue. Along the way, they meet Yogurt, who puts Lone Star wise to the power of the Schwartz. Can he master it in time to save the day?
I'm getting someone like coming across this who has like,
I love it.
Absolutely no context. They're just like scrolling through like, Netflix or in this case, Amazon Prime. And there's like, oh, what movie should I watch? I've never heard of this. And they read that and they're like, yep, that's it for me.
Yep.
This is your first introduction to this.
That is it is hilarious because it is a little over the top, but it is also one of the better ones. I feel like I really enjoyed that one.
Space Bum for Hire. I've been called worse. What a description.
Oh man. So if you haven't seen it, I don't know what's keeping you after that.
Now you basically have. What is the movie what you expected?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Seen it
before. Parody of Star Wars overall in the very 80s dirty fashion. Just Mel Brooks movie for sure. How old did it age?
I thought it was fine.
Yeah.
I feel like there was nothing like Blazing Saddles hurt my mind, body, and soul. I felt like this was fine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought it aged just fine. A little heavy into like the Jewish jokes, but nothing like overly cringy that couldn't be made today. Special effects were fine. A lot of like, it was like the special effects, you kind of knew that it was not meant to be a super over the top realistic thing. It fit the movie. And
because I feel like the whole thing about the movie is that it doesn't take itself seriously. Like it is such a joke in itself that if the special effects are bad, they're like supposed to be bad. And like if it doesn't age well as far as like special effects or like visuals, I feel like a lot of that is because it is parodying something that it had already existed before that. So it's like, and like, I hate to use the phrase period piece because it's like space and like not an ambiguous time, but it almost feels like that doesn't matter because it's like, oh, well, this is making fun of Star Wars that was made 10 years before that. And like, that's what that's trying to capture.
Yeah. in the same vein, could the movie be made today?
Yes.
Yeah, I would say yes. Also, and I know this like breaks my heart that this isn't as modern as I thought it will, would be. But Family Guy did a kind of a parody remake of the Star Wars movies. It's back in like 2009-ish era, which like feels like yesterday, but
was also like a long time ago.
Was not. But people have been making parodies of these movies for a while. I don't think there will ever be another Mel Brooks, but also like Mel Brooks is still here. So sure, very much could be made today.
I was going to save this for a fact snack for next week, but I can't stand it. I was reading the Wikipedia page, and apparently as of June of 2024, they are literally in talks of a sequel.
The Search for More Money?
It is not The Search for More Money. There were several iterations. Like apparently it was going to be, the first sequel was going to be called Spaceballs 3, A Search for Spaceballs 2.
I've heard of that.
And then like, I don't know, XYZ didn't fall into place, but as of like 5 months ago, something is happening. So like, let's all keep, will it be as good? No. But do I want to see what they would possibly do however many years later? 100%.
I will reserve judgment on whether it like will actually be good. I think it could be, because I also don't think Mel Brooks is in a situation where he's just going to be like, yeah, I don't care. Like he doesn't have to do anything. Dude is 98. He fought in the Battle of the Bulge. Yeah.
Let's all just pause and take a moment to digest that.
Yeah. So I think next week's Behind the Screens Facts Hacks is going to be revolving around just Mel Brooks, because that is bananas.
BANANAS. Oh my God. All right. You just have to move on because you can't even comment on it.
Still alive, still cracking, whatever. And also has like done all these movies like since then. He was 61 in this.
God.
Still kicking.
Oh God. God bless that man's soul.
So anyways, yes, it could be made today, probably with the same cast for the most part, because crazy.
Because it's also iconic.
Next question is, did they say the title of the movie in the movie?
Did they?
Couple times.
Did they show it? Did they merchandise it at all?
Planet Spaceballs. Yeah, merchandise it for sure.
Spaceballs, the shaving cream. Spaceballs, the sheets. Spaceballs, the lunchbox. Spaceballs, the flamethrower. What have you. It's in there a gajillion times. Love it.
For sure. Did the title fit the movie? I don't know what else you could possibly do.
Yeah, I think it was great. I think it's perfect.
For sure. Were there any actors that went on to do bigger things?
This was Bill Pullman's third acting credit.
Yeah, I think this was like a pretty stacked cast, to be honest, even though some people had done some things before.
And I think it was like the early days of several of them for sure.
John Candy, I think this was like fairly mid of his career.
Daphne Zuniga was very young. Why do I have such a hard time saying her name?
She was the princess?
Yeah.
She kind of sucked.
I don't think this is her best acting gig, but she has been in a lot of other things. And
yeah, I don't think there's anyone putting on their like overall best acting.
And I think it's just kind of like I'm here making fun of Princess Leia. I'm the princess. Yeah. I think that's kind of how it was supposed to be played anyways.
But Rick Moranis obviously was an absolute
the man, the myth, the legend
of the 80s. We had Michael Winslow, who was the guy known as the guy from Police Academy with all the crazy sound effects. He was the spaceball who was just.
I know who he is. I don't know that I've seen that.
Police Academy. We might have watched it. We might have watched it.
Was it one of those like early days? I fell asleep.
Yeah,
that is how the early days of us watching movies went. He was like, "Let's watch this movie," and then I fell asleep.
Steven Tobolowsky, I guess, that's how you say his name. Who's in like a million freaking things.
Oh, he was the guard.
Yeah.
That is also in Nobody Wants This that we just recently watched.
Sure. He was in that and a million
things. And a million other things. He's also in Glee.
Heroes,
those are the two that stick out in my head.
Yeah. Like just everything. He looked so young that I did not recognize him at first. But overall, also the elf from Bad Santa was one of the
Dinks.
So
the Dinks.
Absolutely so many like.
Yeah. It's just kind of like and things. Joan Rivers is the voice of Dot Matrix, and we said John Candy. Yeah. It's like you're watching it and you're like, yep. Okay, sure. Cool.
So amazing cast, just absolutely crushed it.
I was just surprised that this was so early in Bill Pullman's career. We know him from Newsies, like he's just in
Independence Day.
A gajillion other things. And obviously I know him from this. This was such a staple of my childhood, but I just was like, oh, he must have been in other things before this. Nope.
Yeah, you could kind of tell his acting was not super refined, but also they're playing a parody, so it's hard to tell. But great cast for sure. What impact do you think the movie had on pop culture?
I feel like it was mostly a result of pop culture as opposed to an impact, but I do think it was like in the zeitgeist, if that's the right word, for like of Mel Brooks's work and like what he did and as far as comedy went. And I think like it was such a like comedy, I don't know if staple's the right word, but just like I'm making fun of myself. I'm aware of what I am, but I'm still going to like keep throwing these jokes out and like comment on what pop culture is, which I feel like is something that's so interesting.
Yeah, but I think the big things for me are one, so many of the quotes and everything are like gift, and I see them all the time, even today, in a whole bunch of different things, like the combing of the desert. Like we found shit, like so many of those little quotes there. But the big one to me is the ludicrous speed and plaid, like that. Like that's the Tesla, like the upgrade is you can get like upgrade to ludicrous speed.
I didn't know that. I love that
on the newer one. So like there's like little things like that you see like play out of like you see like the engineering nerds who have like grown up watching this, like putting these little touches on.
That's just like so funny because like, I have like a vivid memory of, I don't know what pretend game me and my childhood friend were playing at age like 10 after I'd seen this. And we're like, we're going to plaid. And it was like very much pulling from this. But the fact that someone actually put that in like a physical car and I'm just like, this is like a pretend game I played with my friends when I was a small child watching this movie when I probably shouldn't have. But
so little things like that, like you can see where it
crazy.
had like all those fingerprints on actual pop culture. So not only was it influenced by it, but I think it's pretty impressive for something that's like a parody like that to live on 20, 30 years later.
Almost 40.
Yeah. Still making impact.
Yeah,
is
that's
very
crazy.
impressive. And do you feel cultured after watching it?
I don't think I feel cultured because it is such a part of my life, but I think it is a big cultural impact. And I'm thankful that someone introduced this to me, Amy, 25 years ago, maybe not that long ago, but like a really long time ago. And that this is something that I grew up on because it definitely was like, I mean, there's a lot of movies I haven't seen, but to like be able to say I've seen this one is like a big, like, oh, I did it.
And I think for sure she should make sure that her sons have also watched this movie.
Oh, I'm certain they have. You know who you are.
If they haven't, yes. So I think that completes our questionnaire.
I'm trying to remember who went first last time, but I think it's dumb of me to even try.
I will go first. I don't have too many, but my first note was I just love like all the little like the really like small minor jokes they have throughout there, like that. Like the opening scroll they call chapter 11, making fun of the whole like the fact that episode 4 A New Hope was like episode 1. Just so many like little things throughout the movie where it's like just these small little minor nuances that I feel like Mel Brooks really did a great job like sprinkling in things where some of them are obvious the first time you watch them of like, oh haha, you're referencing that, but so many of them I feel like you could probably watch the movie like 12 times and pick out at least new things every single time. Just so many small super subtle jokes.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of things I've like always recognized, but then like seeing them again and being like, that was so intentional. Like just like how much thought went into the comedy of this, which feels like almost lazy because it's copying so much, but it's like you had to know all of these things to make this subtle little detail. And it was just like, it's so well done.
For sure. Next note was, well, two of them, I'll combine it to one, was first that I just really miss Rick Moranis. He was just such like a icon of that like 80s 90s playing so many things of like just like the silly dad, the nerdy guy in Ghostbusters,
Barney Rubble in the Flintstones,
like, so many things. And then he like retired like very deservingly, like, and I believe now he's like coming back into acting, which is absolutely wild too.
So maybe he'll be in Spaceballs too.
I feel like it would be kind of weird if he wasn't,
right?
But then also I feel like his acting of Dark Helmet also influenced Stewie from Family Guy, especially in the whole Family Guy parody remake, which I understand you have not seen.
Nope, not even a little bit.
But like the voices that he used and just like the nuances there just felt very much like that directly influenced like Stewie. So it was a weird like accent he put on when he like put the helmet down and was talking in that voice. Yeah,
I loved the like helmet, not helmet. And I don't know what made him choose to go like for this line I need to have the helmet down, whatever, but like It's so funny to just watch.
I would love it if they didn't reveal that it was Rick Moranis like in any previews for that until he like opened it up, because I feel like it'd be such a jarring thing of like, oh, it's supposed to be this big intimidating like dark helmet. He's got this voice, and then it's freaking Rick Moranis.
So good, so good.
We mentioned John Candy and Bill Pullman doing this. I mentioned that they thought that Princess was a terrible actress, but like you kind of mentioned, it might have just been that she was trying to play the cheesy.
I think she was trying to like really pull the I'm the damsel in distress. We're making fun of these like character tropes here.
Yeah, maybe. Mentioned the guy from Police Academy. A big thing for me was breaking the fourth wall. I think that's such like a classic Mel Brooks like staple.
Well, I think my like direct quote is when I have a note on this too, when Dark Helmet looks right at the camera and says, "Everybody hear that?" And you're like, wow, this like, but it also just feels like such an 80s thing to do, where we're like breaking that fourth wall, we're breaking the mold of what television is or what movie is, and just like bringing everybody in with us. Like Ferris,
they could do that.
Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Do they do that in Risky Business too? I don't think so. I think we just watched them really close together, but like it's like such a that like 80s time period.
But even beyond that, like towards the end where they're having the Schwartz lightsaber battle and they like hit one of the cast members, they kind of show that felt Blazing Saddles. The
like cameraman or whatever falling backwards. I totally forgot about that.
Like I feel like that was like a clear like Mel Brooks thing where like movies just like in the middle of it reveal like the set as if it's part of the movie. Is
and even like the
really cool.
Like let's go to like Spaceballs, the VHS, and like going through the movie cabinet and like watching it while you're watching it, and it's happening now. But when is now? It's now. Now is now. And like that whole thing is just like, let's just bring you out of the movie and like we're all making this together. Like I think that's hilarious.
And the merchandising, all those the references,
so funny,
so much breaking the fourth wall, which was just. I don't know if anyone's ever done it as well as Mel Brooks has.
And I think it'd be hard to like, and it would be dumb if every movie did it. But when you do it so sparingly, it's hilarious.
I mentioned Plaid and Ludicrous Speed. My next note was the like talking or like getting hit by something, like talking and then falling face down. I feel like was such a trope of like the 80s and like even like the cartoons in like the 80s and 90s. And I feel like that's a trope that's not as much played out anymore. I think
it's kind of like the quicksand thing.
Well, I think also maybe we kind of don't make light of like head trauma as much anymore.
Oh, no. Targeting.
But it was like such a thing of like, oh, you're like in the movie, you get knocked in the head and you like kind of talk, say something kind of weird and outlandish, and then you just fall like face
Smoke
forward.
If you gotta.
That when Dark Helmet like flew to the front of the ship, they pick him back up, he like says something and falls down. Like that was just such a
Smoke If You Gotta. Falls
down. The next note was that slow motion has really improved today with higher frame rates. You can tell in movies like this,
like with yogurt. With
the smoke coming out.
Yeah, the like statue of yogurt that was not really yogurt. And
I think one of the bigger ones to me, even that's even funnier, is now that we've got kids, we've gone back and rewatched some of the Disney movies, but especially like Lion King, where they show like the Mufasa versus Scar fight, and they're trying to do slow-mo with a cartoon.
With a drawn animation.
You have control over the frame rate mostly for that. But like it's so choppy and so like bad. Whereas nowadays when we're doing slow motion, okay, we're playing this movie back in 24 frames per second. We can capture this in 120 frames per second, play it back much slower, and it's smoother and like looks correct. Whereas in this, they were filming it at a constant frame rate, and they just they just basically stretched the frames out, and it just looks so choppy and jarring that it probably would seem fine then, but now that we're accustomed to what slow motion should actually look like, it just seems so bad and being like, oh man, I feel like my TV's glitching or just makes me uncomfortable every time.
Mr. Technology like can't handle when the TV doesn't work right.
I'm like, do I need to restart the TV or something? But the next note, we kind of cover this, that Mel Brooks is 90 freaking 8.
I don't think I looked up to see like how old Daphne's news. Oh my gosh, I can't say her name. Daphne Zuniga and Bill Pullman. Like I looked up to see how old they were during the filming of this, but I just like didn't look to see how old everybody was now. That I can't believe he's 98. God, that's wild.
Mentioned the Stewie thing, and then I thought it was funny. We kind of mentioned that this parodied mostly Star Wars, A New Hope, and Star Trek, but also towards the end they threw in references to Planet of the Apes and Alien. I wonder how many more also that I even missed from this, that maybe we'll see some more like
I've got some
movies. I guess most of this we've already seen like on our sci-fi season. Most of the movies that we're going to watch or all the movies we'll watch from here on out will take place after this movie. But I think there's probably even more that even I missed in this.
The big one that you missed is Wizard of Oz.
Where?
So I noticed it the most. This was one of my notes. When they were walking into Yogurt's thing, and you're looking at like it's like the four of them, and you have Barf, that's like the lion. You have Dot, who is like the Tin Man, and then Daphne, who is or Princess Vespa, who is like Dorothy, and then I guess you just put Lone Star as Scarecrow, but they're walking in, and then he's like the great and powerful, like under the mask. And then there's this when Yogurt is, after they crack the fortune cookie at the end, he's like, oh, what a world, which is what the the Wicked Witch says when she's like melting or whatever. That there are several like little references to Wizard of Oz.
I missed that. That's clever to also put that in there.
And it is also one of my notes that the dad looks like the lion when he's all made up in the Wizard of Oz. And like I'd read that Wizard of Oz was like one of the crossovers of this, but I'm watching this and I'm like, he looks just like the lion after he goes and he's like, I am the king of the forest or whatever. Like he just like sings his song and he's like got his like ringlet curls that he looks just like the king. So do you have any other notes?
I don't know. Also, the guy that played the Cowardly Lion died in 1967, so well before this.
Oh my God. That was so long.
Yeah.
That was a quick pull up. Oh my God. That was so
That's why
fast.
they call me Andy Fast Hands.
Oh my God. I'm so sorry to anybody that heard that. Okay. So let me just go ahead and jump into my notes. So we've covered some of them already, but my first one is that we like kind of have a crossover already with the Star Wars title and, the slow scroll. And I don't know how much of this we count as like actual like ding references. Cause I was like starting to write them down and then I was like, I think that maybe this could get really obnoxious and that I should stop. Because then the next one is 2001: A Space Odyssey of the slow pan of the ship. And then I have more, but we'll get to them. So those were just like quick things. And then I've already talked about the like looking to the screen. But then and then my fourth note is they actually mention Star Trek when President Scroob is being beamed to the next room. He's like, well, it works on Star Trek. Why not? That like, I was like, okay, that's like an actual like ding, true reference to a film. Besides just like, oh, I'm parodying this. Like,
I also love the trope that he just like, or the joke that he just then walks right in through the next room. It's amazing.
And I'm like so familiar with this. I was like, does he remember that he just like literally is walking to the next room? That I was waiting for you to just like die laughing. It's like one of my favorite parts. And like Snotty and Scotty. So funny. My next note is
we're like so close where it's like, were they doing this just to avoid copyright infringement or something like that? Like with the Dink Dinks, like sing along to the Wizard of Oz, the Seven Dwarfs, and there were 6 of them. I'm like, there's only 6 here. Is that because they want to avoid being too close of a reference? But then they mentioned Disney later in it.
Disneyland, they did that. I think they were kind of like, screw it.
Yeah.
We're going all out for this one. My next note is 1-800-Druidia is something that I quote in my head, if not every week, like it is pretty regularly. And I don't know why, and I don't know what triggers it in my head, but like I regularly for 20 plus years have probably been like 1-800-Druidia so many times. And I feel like lately it's been that the word druid comes up on Octurtle a lot. And by a lot, I mean like more times than I would expect it to. And every time I'm like 1-800-Druidia. And I think about that line all the time. So it's like so stupid, but it's something that just like makes me laugh every time I hear it.
There's definitely some random obscure words that happen more often than they should on Quirtle and Octurtle. Where I'm like, a word I don't think of that often, but like, I guess it's ennui this week. Okay.
Yeah. And like especially with druid, I'm like, is this a real word? Because to me, it's like Spaceballs that I'm like, is this something that's actually like a thing? And I just like, I end up second guessing myself. And then when it's actually the word, I'm just like 1-800-Druidia.
And that's all they made the Stonehenge. So
I don't know. All I know is Druidia. Like that's like what my brain goes to immediately. My next note is King Roland looks like the lion from Wizard of Oz. Okay. So the joke about the Druish princess. And like
she doesn't look Druish.
She doesn't look Druish. Blah, blah, blah. But like, wouldn't they know that she's from Druidia if King Roland called them and was like, they took my daughter. Like, would they not know where he's from?
They're just saying she doesn't look Jewish.
I know, but like, wouldn't they know? But like, they're like, Druish princess. And they're like so like taken aback by it. But I'm like, don't you know that she is from Druidia and that she's Druish? Like, don't you know all of that because that's where she's from and you've talked to her dad?
Yeah, but that's the joke.
Sure. But like, if I met you and I knew your parents and I knew they were Jewish, if as the joke is, and then I met you and was like, oh, that's weird. He doesn't like, I don't know. It's just like, I would
joke is
expect
people like see an actor and actress and like, oh, they don't look Jewish. And like, this was the whole thing of like, you know where they're from, you know all that, but you're like, oh, they don't look that.
Yeah.
I think it was an excuse for them to say the phrase, she doesn't look Jewish.
I get it. I've laughed at the joke many times, but it was like, oh, but like, don't they already know like who, what, when, where? I don't know.
Cut that.
No. Okay. My next note is I loved, and I don't know if we consider this like a ding crossover, that Blazing Saddles and Young Frankenstein were in the VHS collection of Mel Brooks when they were, or like of the movies when they were going back.
Blazing Saddles came out 13 years before this too, by the way.
It feels like not enough. It feels like it should be like 30.
Oh, I mean, it feels to me like these all took place in the same like 10-year span. Just like the production quality, the look, everything like that. And just Mel Brooks, to me, just his life timeline is just beyond
wild.
Everything. But
Yeah. And it kills me that like I went so blind into Blazing Saddles. If you haven't seen it, it's like season 1, episode 4, I think. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I mean, if you're going to watch an episode, like that's one to watch. But I'm like, I don't know how I had never heard of this when it's literally been right there in front of me my entire life. So anyways, loved seeing those in there. And then my last note is Wizard of Oz parody 2. I guess I didn't have more. I thought I had a lot more notes than that. I also thought it was interesting that the Mega Maid looked like the Statue of Liberty.
Yeah.
Like I just can't get over that.
I thought it was going to be like a Ghostbusters joke, but they were like, oh, it just looks like a maid.
Oh, another parody is Transformers. How the thing transforms into that. Because I was looking at Wikipedia and it mentioned a couple things. Planet of the Apes, Star Wars, Star Trek, 2001 Space Odyssey. There's lots of stuff in this one that I'm almost interested to be like, is someone on the internet has to have like this is a reference to this and this is like a complete breakdown, which I would love to sit down and read. Oh, I love this movie so much. It just like has really brought me, because again, I probably haven't watched it in at least 10 years. And it's just like really brought me back to a lot of my like weird childhood, like middle school, early high school memories. Just classic.
Yeah.
And I think I this time I really took from it and appreciated the comedy genius of it. Like they really were intentional about so many things. Even the stuff where it was like, are they just getting lazy? But it was like, no, but like this is actually funny because it's something that nobody else does. And
what I'd love to see is, this seems to predate the whole era of like deleted scenes and keeping that around, but I would love to hear like the commentary track or anything of like things that they cut from this or changed or had to go back and redo, just because the way it came out was amazing. That I just want to know like what things did you try that didn't work, or what things did you like were completely made up in the moment while you were filming it, ad-libbed. Just I would love to know so many more of that, because the way that it came out was just so now iconic. Right.
I do have the DVD, so we should maybe see if there's any DVD extras. There are probably not too many, but there might be something probably worth checking out. But yeah, oh, so good. And I feel like there was something else I was going to say, but I totally forgot it. But just like so well done. Definitely culturally significant, stands the test of time. Definitely one of the top ones we've watched on the pod.
Yeah, a high recommend for sure.
Yes. So if you have not seen it, we very much recommend that you watch it. Check it out. Honestly, we just should have just done a whole Mel Brooks season, because I feel like his movies are so iconic in their own.
I feel like though you can only take but so many of them in a row, because they are just so out there and different. A lot of them are making fun of various eras, and I think it is kind of fun to be in the middle of a space season and see something like this. It would have been kind of cool if we'd done it like right after, or if we'd done the season where if we'd done A New Hope and Star Trek to then have done this.
Yeah.
Well, they're super fresh.
I was kind of sad that it's been so long since we've seen those, because I feel like it's like, okay, what is that from this? Like I don't know those movies well enough to like really have them cemented in my brain that I was like, I don't know if I remember all that well enough to know what reference that was, but it's also good.
But yeah, definitely a very interesting like change of pace in the middle of a space season. Still very much like on theme with it.
But especially coming from The Right Stuff last week, which is like so rooted in actual American history, to this like super like sci-fi parody comedy. Like it's just definitely very different, but it's so good. So good. All right. So I think with that, it is time to move on to episode 4, which we will hopefully come out with next week. And we will continue on our space station. Thank you.
Our space station. Woo!
I'm so tired. And we will continue on with our space station. Why don't you just...
And we will continue on with our space season next week with another movie. And if you are liking the podcast, we hope that you subscribe on all of the major podcast networks, that you subscribe on YouTube.
Rate and review.
Follow our Instagram.
At Culture Night Pod. If you have any questions, you can email us at culturenightpod@gmail.com.
Or just message us on any of those platforms.
And thank you so much for watching, and we will catch you next week.
Cheers.
Da-da-da.